Okay, so this video is going to introduce you to the structural functionalist theory. So this is one of the theories within the positivist sociology perspective here. Now, structural functionalism as a theory, and there are multiple sort of theories within here, but the kind of overarching reason for thinking about society, studying society, is sort of reflected in this question that's on the side here, in that what functions do the different parts of society serve is a organizing set of assumptions here. And so when we look at some of the first type or the first articulations of structural functionalist theory, we have Herbert Spencer. He was one of the first sociologists to draw an analogy between societies and living organisms. So, an organism, like the human body, for example. So, an organism is made up of many specialized parts. So, our bodies, think of what makes up our bodies. We have a brain, we have a heart, we have lungs, we have skin and bones. And each part, of that human body, of that organism, has a particular function, which contributes to the maintaining of the whole. So the brain has a particular important role to play, so does our heart, our lungs, and so on. And these parts, again, of the organism, the living organism, these parts are interdependent upon one another. Each part needs the other and for the organism to survive. And as a result, each part has to work in harmony with one another. So the lungs need to be, fed through the blood created within the skeletal system and pumped through the heart, and so on and so on. And so by, defining this sort of analogy here, this metaphor, the argument that Herbert Spencer made was that the same thing is true with societies. Each society has many different specialized parts. What society's parts are things like institutions. So things like the family or religion, politics or government, educational system and schools, the economy and the workplace. Those are all different parts of society. We call those parts social institutions. Each of those institutions has a function and an important role to play in contributing to the well-being of society. So, for example, the family as a social institution has the important role of bearing and rearing and raising children. The political government system, as much as we don't like them, they make decisions regarding laws, finances, foreign affairs, and so forth. So each institution has its own particular role to play, and its own particular function to play in society. I'm going to come back to some more of these points here, but I want to elaborate a little bit more on this notion of functions that the different parts of society can play. And for that, I'm going to go to the work of Robert Merton, another structural functionalist theorist here. And Robert Merton introduced a distinction between manifest functions and latent functions. So manifest functions are intended and or easily recognizable by people within society. So they're the functions of an institution that are open, are stated, they're the known purpose of an institution. And I'll play with it. We'll do a little example here of this here just in a second. Latent functions, on the other hand, are the unintended functions of an institution or a part of society. They're the functions that are hidden, unconscious, or they may actually sometimes even reflect a hidden purpose for that part or that institution. Now, Merton, in talking about and defining manifest and latent functions, said this introduction, no, sorry, talking just about latent functions, Merton said the introduction of the concept of latent function in social research leads to conclusions which show that social life is not as simple as it first seems. So this is that notion of latent function, the complicates, the picture of anything that you're looking at. So let's try and think of some examples here, and I'll encourage you to, pause the video while you think of some potential examples as I prompt you to. But I'm going to take the example of education, and because I'm operating within a polytechnic, and so this course is part of post-secondary education. That's a good, example. We can think of some examples here. So education's a very specialized, part within society. So take a minute or two, or however long it might take, to think of what are some of the manifest functions of post-secondary education. So remember, again, manifest functions are open, stated, easily recognized. They're the clear functions of a particular part. So again, pause the video if you like to try and list some what you think are the manifest functions. You can think about it in terms of like a brochure, if you're making a brochure for post-secondary education, it'd be the brochure that the school has created for themselves, what they want you to know, why they want you to come, and so that is the manifest functions. Okay, so hopefully you've come up with some examples, and hopefully they're similar to the ones I'm going to say. I'm not going to give you all of the manifest functions here, but it's generally understood that the manifest functions of post-secondary education, much like K to 12 education, would be providing information and skills that the students attending need to perform jobs within the community once they leave. Another manifest function is just simply the transmission of knowledge. And so that depends on what program and what courses you're taking, but, passing down knowledge and information to people while they're there at that institution. So those are really simple and obvious, and not obviously, but most of the time the manifest function of a part or an institution is obvious, and it's like, well, yeah, of course, everyone knows that is the purpose of education. But this is where we get a little bit, this is where we're going to complicate it, as Merton said. The latent functions get us, we have to kind of put on a really critical hat here to try and think of what might be some of other unintended consequences or hidden consequences or functions, sorry, of post-secondary education. So again, take a minute and see if you can think of latent functions for post-secondary education. This is kind of the, not the official kind of brochure information the school would give you before coming. It's kind of what you learn once you're there kind of functions and role. All right, so some latent functions that have been identified by sociologists of post-secondary education would be things like it's a place where we can establish social relationships and networks and connections to other people. The way universities and colleges function, are that it creates, almost lifelong relationships that one can use once they've moved on from that particular institution. A little bit more and really interesting, and they maybe should sell this more in trying to recruit you to post-secondary, but sociologists have noted that colleges, universities, polytechnics sometimes function as marriage brokers, bringing people together, and usually you're bringing people together of similar backgrounds in a social scene that operates for an ongoing setting for courtship. So that definitely is not in the official brochure for any post-secondary institution that I know of. Another latent function of, and so again, unintended or hidden or just not overtly realized function, is that post-secondary educational centers delay the entry of millions of young people into the labor market, where many of them would fail to find jobs. So that point is that if everyone after you've graduated from high school were then to go and try and find work, there probably wouldn't be enough jobs for you to do. So this sort of slows down that employment, rush for employment in many cases. So again, latent means that they're latent because they're non-intended consequences or non-intended functions envisioned by the designers of the educational system in this case, nor are they acknowledged in any official way by school administrators or students or parents in this way. Okay, so let's go back to our definition and sort of using this analogy of societies being like living organisms, and the specialized parts have a function. Just like in the human body, all the different parts have to work together. They're interdependent. So too are the parts of society. So, for example, the economy depends upon the educational system to provide future workers with skills. The education system depends upon the economy and the government, often for funds and financial support to keep going. Just a quick example of this interdependency here at Red Deer Polytechnic. Red Deer Polytechnic has a long history of people generously, donating money for, facilities, for space, for equipment, and that sort of thing, to allow the institution to, continue to teach, future workers, but often just to, enhance, the experience for students. So I've on the screen here just a couple of recent, within the last year, I think, just all within the last year, examples of really significant donations to Red Deer Polytechnic. For example, the one item here, a scholarship fund, was, and this was I believe a family donation to set up scholarship to allow students to be here and to learn specifically in the STEM programs, so STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. Others, RBC, Royal Bank of Canada, donated some money to help expand Red Deer Polytechnic's facilities and equipment for advanced and alternate energy innovation as well. So so these are just some examples of the interdependency on this. Not captured in here are other donations that that are really specific to making sure we have good and well-trained nursing students and graduates. The trade side of the institution also always depends upon those sorts of donations to make sure we send out and graduate well-trained trades persons. So all of the interdependent parts of a society, according to structural functionalism, they must function together in harmony. And that's the ideal. You want everything to, work well. Just like you want a healthy body, you can also have a healthy society, and that's when everything is working together. The survival of society is going to depend on cooperation, and that cooperation depends upon consensus or agreement on, in this case, on basic values and rules for behavior across all the different parts of society. This means that there has to be similar rules in most of the structures or institutions there, and there has to be some sort of consistency. So under normal, healthy conditions, the various parts of society are going to work together towards shared goals, producing order, stability, equilibrium. And that, again, back to our example of post-secondary and that sort of thing. When post-secondary institutions train people with the skills that are in demand and needed in the workplace, and therefore we're able to send out graduates who can actually do the work and improve the economy, and everything works well, that's stability, that's equilibrium. In a healthy functioning society, then there's a delicate balance between the different social parts and in this sort of trying to establish consensus and cooperation. But because all the elements of society are interdependent, though, change or disruption in one area of social life is inevitably going to cause adjustments or impacts on other aspects of social life. So problems or troubles in society are going to be kind of like the symptoms of a disease. They're going to start to show up. And that's a sign to sociologists that something's wrong in that society. It's a sign that something's wrong somewhere, and in one part that then is negatively impacting other parts of society. So when there's something wrong, structural functionalists refer to this as dysfunction. Dysfunctions are the undesirable consequences of any element of society. Dysfunctions, they tend to produce conflict in society. And just as a disease is harmful in a living organism, dysfunction in a social system disrupts that healthy functioning of society. There's sign that something is wrong. Let's see, I'm going to pull on some of the work of Emil Durkheim, a structural functionalist theorist here, because he articulated, and this was one area that he really worked in and developed initially here. Emil Durkheim, when a society was experiencing dysfunction, he labeled it anomy, or anomie, sorry. And anomie is just, it's a state, it sort of describes a society that is experiencing a state of normlessness and kind of a confusion amongst people in society of what are the rules and how should I be acting in that sort of case. So a dysfunction, something wrong in a part, is going to cause this sort of disruption, which Emil Durkheim called anomie, which then leads to kind of a loss of values, a sense of purpose amongst people. And that sort of restlessness and is going to have some consequences. People are going to behave badly, and in dysfunctional and negative ways. So Emil Durkheim specifically was looking at industrial societies, or societies that had undergone that industrial revolution. From the history of sociology we looked at there, and he was looking specifically at some societies, and in some societies, as I noted, there was an increase in poverty, an increase in crime. Emil Durkheim's, one of his major focuses was on increases in suicide amongst societies as they went through that industrial revolution. So these are sort of symptoms or consequences of an increased state of anomie within a society, which then gets linked back to dysfunction in the society. And so that's what sociologists then try to do, is try and figure out what's the source of the dysfunction. To try then to fix that and get that society back to a state of stability and equilibrium and harmony, so that you don't then have, consequences like crime, suicide, poverty. Okay, I think that is all I'm going to cover for the structural functionalist theory here. And with the next video, I'm going to hit on some of the other theories.